I'm Wilma. Sitting here in my study, surrounded by the quiet of my home on Elmwood Drive, I'm reminded of that fateful morning in the conference room. The tension was palpable as Graham, my ex-wife's attorney, sat across from me, a smirk on his face. Little did he know that in just 4 minutes, that smirk would vanish, replaced by shock and disbelief. I've spent 30 years on the federal bench in Seattle, Washington. I've seen it all: fraud cases worth millions, elaborate conspiracies unraveled, and defendants who thought they were untouchable brought to justice. I thought I was immune to the kind of betrayal that would shatter my world. But I was wrong. 2 years ago, at a point in my life where I craved peace and quiet, I retired. My wife, Lily, had been pushing for it for a while. She painted a picture of a life filled with travel and lazy mornings, free from the stress of my work. I believed her. Lily was 50 at the time, and she was still incredibly beautiful, with a grace and charm that drew people to her. She had worked as a fashion stylist for 18 years, building a clientele that included some of the most prominent figures in Seattle's social scene. We had a daughter together, Ava. She was 24 when all of this started. Ava worked in public relations for a tech startup in Silicon Valley and would come home to Seattle about once a month. She was smart, ambitious, and incredibly close to her mother. I always told myself that was just the way it was between mothers and daughters, but I was wrong about that, too. About 14 months after my retirement, in September, I noticed the first signs of trouble. Lily had always been a talkative person, sharing every detail of her day with me. But suddenly, she went quiet. She still asked about my day and laughed at my jokes, but the constant narration of her life stopped. The spontaneous phone calls dried up, and she started carrying her phone differently, always face down and with the screen brightness turned low. I'm a judge, and I know better than to act on incomplete evidence. So, I watched. I kept my face neutral and my voice warm, but I paid close attention. By October, I had enough to suspect that something was going on. Her schedule had gaps that she couldn't explain, and she started coming home wearing a perfume I didn't recognize. I hired a private investigator, Max, a former police detective who had worked on cases I'd presided over. He was discreet and thorough. It didn't take him long to find out what was happening. Lily was having an affair with a man named Ryan, a 42-year-old art gallery owner. They had met through a mutual client about 10 months earlier. Learning that Lily had been lying to me for 10 months was a gut punch. It took me back to all the family gatherings, the holidays, and the moments I thought were real. But I didn't confront her right away. I needed to understand the full picture. Over the next 6 days, I discovered that Lily had not only been having an affair but also quietly restructuring our finances. I noticed a small transfer from a brokerage account, and with the help of my attorney, Sarah, who had been practicing family law in Seattle for over 20 years, we traced the money. Over the course of about 7 months, Lily had moved approximately $320,000 from our joint accounts into accounts in her name alone. The transfers were carefully structured to stay below reporting thresholds, and it was clear that she had been advised by someone. Then, in December, I had lunch with Ava in San Francisco. She had invited me for a surprise early birthday lunch, and I was looking forward to spending time with her. But during the lunch, as we were waiting for the check, she reached across the table and told me that she knew about her mother's affair. She said she had known for 6 months, that she had met Ryan, and that she thought her mother deserved happiness. I was stunned. I asked her if she knew about the financial transfers, and she seemed genuinely shocked. But the look on her face told me that she had known enough. She had known that her mother was planning to leave, and she had chosen to support her without saying a word to me. That was the moment I decided to stop waiting and start moving. I filed for divorce on a Monday morning in January. I didn't tell Lily it was coming. I just left the house as if I was going for my regular breakfast at a diner and drove to Sarah's office to sign the papers. Lily was served at home later that morning. The first meeting between our attorneys was a turning point. Graham, Lily's attorney, was confident and aggressive. He thought he had the upper hand, and he presented a settlement offer that was clearly in Lily's favor. But Sarah and I were prepared. We told him that we weren't settling, that we had documentation of the financial transfers, and that we intended to characterize them as dissipation of marital assets. Graham took it well at first, but I could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. He didn't know about my independent estate. My grandfather had left me a large piece of land outside of Seattle, and my father had left me investments that had grown over the years. I had always been careful with my finances and had never discussed the details with Lily. For weeks before filing for divorce, I visited my estate attorney, Tom, and rewrote my will. I named various charitable organizations, my brother, and a scholarship fund I had established at the University of Washington School of Law as the beneficiaries. When we had our first formal four-way meeting in the conference room, Lily looked composed, but I could see the strain beneath the surface. Graham restated the settlement offer, but Sarah declined it. She then spent 45 minutes laying out the evidence of the financial transfers, clearly showing that they were strategic and not innocent account management. When Sarah brought up my independent estate and slid the summary document across the table, Graham's face paled. He asked about the recent restructuring, and I told him that I had updated my will. The realization that Lily would not get a share of my independent estate hit them hard. Lily's composure broke first. She didn't cry or raise her voice, but her hands tightened and her jaw set. Graham asked for a recess. After the recess, his tone had changed. He said that his client wanted to revisit the settlement framework. The final agreement took another 8 weeks to negotiate. It wasn't easy. There were moments when the pain of our 20-year marriage ending hit me hard. But I knew I had made the right decision. In the end, Lily received her fair share of the jointly held marital assets, but she didn't get anything from my independent estate. I kept the house on Elmwood Drive. Ava and I have had some difficult conversations since the divorce. I understand that she was in a tough position, and her loyalty to her mother is natural. But it still hurt to know that she had chosen a side without knowing the full story. We're not where we were, but we're talking, and that's something. Looking back, I don't regret my decision. The truth was going to come out eventually, and I wanted to be the one in control. I've learned that in life, it's important to be patient, to gather evidence, and to make decisions based on facts. The scholarship fund at the University of Washington is called the Wilma Foundation for Ethical Practice. It goes to second-year students who have shown academic excellence and a commitment to pro bono work. The first recipient, a young woman named Mia, wrote me a letter thanking me for the opportunity. I keep that letter on my desk as a reminder of the good that can come out of a difficult situation. There are moments in life when everything changes in an instant. The morning Lily handed me a glass of orange juice and told me she loved me, I knew she was lying. But instead of reacting impulsively, I waited. And in the end, I was the one who came out on top.